Did you know that in Crime Scene Cleaner, when you find the VIP card on the blood trial mission, your character will say this?
You know, I'm something of a VIP myself.
So your character saying "I'm something of a VIP myself" is a reference to this scene from 2002's Spider-Man.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Video Game Easter Eggs, the series where we take a look at some of the latest and not so latest Easter eggs in video games. Don't forget to leave a like on this video if you do go on to enjoy it, and without further delay, let's get started. Right, let's begin with one of the strangest Easter eggs I've ever recorded. And believe me, I've recorded a lot. Another Crab's Treasure was a surprisingly good game that was full of really cool things to find. In fact, there was so much to see and do that I even gave the game its own video, which doesn't happen very often. With that in mind, you might think that we found all there is to find in another Crab's Treasure. But let me say two words to you: Starfish Orgy. And before you check, starfish is one word. Anyway, yes, you heard me right. In another Crab's Treasure, you can find this. Now, to the untrained eye, this looks like a group of starfish spending some quality time together. But things aren't as innocent as they seem. You see, over on the Aggro Crab YouTube channel, they posted a short where they replied to someone who asked if there are starfish in the game, as they had a phobia. It was at this point that the brilliant Aggro Crab YouTube person explained that this is actually a starfish orgy, and this is how starfish actually do it.
If you don't know, there's a room in the game behind Nephro's fight where there's a bunch of starfish hanging out because we promised Twitter we would do it.
So there you have it. Another Crab's Treasure is home to a starfish orgy. You learn something new every day. Another game that warranted a whole video to itself, perhaps even two whole videos if I ever get round to it, is the Silent Hill 2 remake. Konami seem to have remembered that they used to make really cool games. But instead of continuing to make those really cool games, they've instead hired developers like Bloober Team to make them instead. Now, just because Konami have pretty much forgotten their entire library of classic games, it doesn't mean that the guys at Bloober Team have. For example, near the beginning of the Silent Hill 2 remake, you can find a shop with a very interesting name. Okay, so the name isn't particularly interesting. I mean, Andy's tool shop is pretty boring. But underneath this unremarkable name is World's Finest Metal Gear and Woodworking Tools. I mean, sure, there is a very, very, very small chance that this is a coincidence, and that Bloober Team weren't referencing Konami's Metal Gear series. But I think we all know that's definitely not the case. So we've covered Lumbearjack in this series before, where we discovered Bob Ross doing what Bob Ross does best. Well, it turns out that Mr. Ross isn't the only famous face you can find in the game. At the very beginning of this level, you can find this guy. So it's one of the Ghostbusters, but surely he's not out there busting ghosts alone. Well, further into the level, you can find the rest of the squad each needing a quick slap to remember that they are part of the world's greatest ghost fighting team. Now, if I'm honest, I'm kind of surprised that more games don't reference Ghostbusters. I can't recall finding a Ghostbusters Easter egg in another game, but like I said, I have recorded a lot of Easter eggs. So if you can think of any, then let me know in the comments. Now, this next game isn't even out yet. But the developer reached out to me back in July where they asked if I would be okay with them referencing me in a game. Well, fast forward a few months later, and here we are. The Sacrifice is a turn-based puzzle game set in 17th century Salem, with the main hook being you have to control two characters at once. Like I said, it's not out yet, but the demo is available on Steam for those interested. Anyway, if you load up the first puzzle on the second zone and type in Eggcellent 3 times, this will happen. Listen, I'm not stupid. I know that some developers only mention YouTubers to get free promotion, but even if that's what this is, I still think it's really cool. Now, the chances are that a lot of you won't even know what this next game is. But if everything has gone to plan, it's the thumbnail of this video, and presumably why you clicked. Painkiller Battle Out of Hell is a 2004 expansion to 2004's Painkiller. In typical PC shooter from the early noughties fashion, Painkiller is a gory, fast-paced first-person shooter that isn't afraid to spray a little blood pretty much whenever it can. Among the many crazy enemies you can face off against are syringe-wielding nurses, who would love nothing more than to take your blood until there's nothing left to take. Well, if we take a closer look at the nurse's chesticles, you can see that this nurse, and all of the other nurses, are called Mona Sucks. Now, fans of the Max Payne series will recognise this name immediately. Well, sort of anyway. But if you don't recognise it, Mona Sucks is a reference to Mona Sachs from the Max Payne games. I mean, if I'm honest, I included this Easter egg for two reasons. Reason one being I've had it recorded since December 2022. Yes, seriously. And reason two, because those nurses make for a great thumbnail. Now, let's end today's video with Black Ops 6. Now, I've said before that I'm not a pro zombies player. In fact, I'd much rather play the campaign or multiplayer. But when I heard that zombies had some brilliant Easter eggs that didn't require me to have a ridiculously in-depth knowledge about all things zombies defined, I decided to hop in. Now, both of today's zombies Easter eggs can be found on the Liberty Falls map, and if I'm honest, both are pretty easy to do. First up, if you approach these telescope things, you can look through them. Now, what you're looking for is a zombie dancing on her own. And once you find her, just stare at her until the game kicks you off. Oh, and don't worry, the zombies won't attack whilst you're looking through the telescope things. Anyway, after looking through the first telescope thing, look through the second one and find the dancing zombie again, which will cause this to happen. So all the zombies will jump on top of a bus and begin to dance. And if you want to, you can climb up and join them. However, if you boogie like there's no tomorrow, there literally might be no tomorrow, as after a minute or so, the zombies will snap out of it and be straight back to hunting you down.
Great! Pick on the old guy!
The other zombies Easter egg is really cool. Around the map you can find 5 pairs of bowling shoes, and here are the locations.
Less than yesterday. Never been so glad. Keep pushing. We need to find out what caused all this, even if it turns out it was us.
Once you shoot the 5th and final pair of shoes, this will happen. So you're teleported to a bowling alley, where a bunch of zombies are dancing. When you first arrive, a creepy rabbit will give you a bowling ball, and this is where I did something really dumb. You see, I thought that you actually had to bowl normally, so I was avoiding the zombies and aiming for the pins, and then wondering why my score wasn't going up. I then realised that you're actually supposed to hit the zombies with the bowling ball, which is admittedly much more fun and does make more sense. Apparently, if you score 300 points here, you'll get a trophy, but I think that's impossible solo. I spent way longer than I'd like to admit bowling zombies, and the best score I got was 240. So that's it. At the time of recording this video, I am 86,000 subscribers away from 1 million, which is crazy when you consider I make videos about Easter eggs. So if you haven't already, please consider clicking or tapping subscribe. If you think you know something that I haven't featured before, then be sure to leave it in the comments down below and you'll be featured in the credits of a future video. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.